Hello everyone, and today we're going to be looking at what if Europe restarted. Now, the reason why Now is no longer a series is because the most embarrassing thing ever. I do not want to explain. However, anyways, Now is gone, and now with that, we have a European thing. What if Europe restarted? Firstly, we could see some Danish people over here deciding to create a comeback and creating the Danish Empire. And so they gain northern Denmark, and then they end up gaining Copenhagen, which they then switch their capital from here all the way to this area where Copenhagen is at. So they rebuilt Copenhagen, and then they decide to create a conquest throughout Sweden. Now we can see that they have good progress as they try reaching this area, which they succeed, and then they go down. However, then a group of people decide that it is not good for Danish people to be over here, as it was formal territory of Denmark's Nordic brothers and brethrens. So then a revolt happens, where we can see the green people come. Now, firstly, the green people will go from here all the way up to the end of the Swedish lands. However, the ruler over here, over here, doesn't see it until he gets a note. He gets a note from people over here saying that there's a rebellion. So the king sends the troops. However, it's already too late. The areas over here are taken. However, the troops end up having a secret attack over here, which damages them a tiny bit over here. However, the protests are so bad that the soldiers gave up and eventually joined the protests, as they knew that Danish people in this area is no longer available, as these people, mind you, these people absolutely killed a bunch of tribes in this area, and these tribes are having revenge for what the Danish did to their families or something. Anyways, eventually this has its independence, and so it starts going up. And so they go over here, and then they go to the second water source right here, and then they connect here, and yeah, they just do stuff. Meanwhile, we can look at over here in Corsica, where we're going to be seeing the blue team. The blue team goes to the northern Corsica, eventually going down to southern Corsica, which they stop. Oh my! The Corsican people eventually go over here, and Napoleon. Do you recognize this? Napoleon, do you recognize this? This is Genoa, Napoleon. This is Genoa. Anyways, so Genoa is created. Genoa then expands and becomes a pretty big empire in Italy. It eventually got Rome, and Rome eventually becomes Corsican territory, which is now the Corsican capital city. Which now this is proto-Italy in this thing. Eventually, the Italians eventually have a small thing over here until tribes people in these areas with weapons bash them out of the area, and then eventually it becomes a country named New Spain. New Spain over here, which actually reminds me of a certain Spain from Panau, but whatever. They eventually gain a large chunk of Sardinia. They eventually combine Sardinia into two entities. The first one being West Sardinia, which is what they own, and East Sardinia, which is the Italians' ones. And plus, it is pretty peaceful in these areas, so they don't really mind. The Italians then gain some territories in Sicily, and gain the whole island in yeah. So now we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 countries already created in a span of 6 minutes. See, it's not really that long actually. And then we can actually see a really fast progressing country. The men. Since the Isle of Man, it's man. So because it's man, it should be man. So basically, yeah, they just gain these territories, and also gain a lot of territories in these areas, and also gain some territories in these territories, and those territories are absolutely gobbled up by territories, and those territories are absolutely destroyed because territories are about to be gained by the purple country. Now the purple country's goal is to gain all of England, and right now it's in Scotland. Makes sense. They eventually gain these islands and these islands, and they also just gain this. However, there's a bunch of protests here, and there's a bunch of groups who actually want to be independent because they don't want the purple country to be the only one who rules over Britain. So over here we have 3 rebellions, one of which is actually a country right here already, which has these territories. Now the blue area was taken over by the men. Yes, the Men Republic. So the Men Republic basically gained this territory. However, this territory became semi-independent, as it was still part of, like, you know, the Men Empire, the Empire of Men. And so firstly they tried gaining some territory in these areas, and they quickly invade over these lands, and they gain a city over here and connect. The orange team was created. It was a group inside of the Isle of Man. That does not look like an island. However, anyways, this area was actually made by the Republic of Men, which this group decided to protest against the purple team for being such patriotic to, you know, patriotic to the fact of uniting all of Britain and also Ireland. So because of that, they gain some territories over here, and make a landing here, which then cuts the green team, and now the purple team is in a vulnerable position, as now it's over here, which this area gets. In this peace treaty, we can absolutely see the demolishment of the Republic of the Men, which it's now basically just the men. And so the men decide to gain some territory over here. So we can see that the orange team over here gets entire occupation of Ireland. The cyan team gains the expands over here from the orange team's land. And so yeah. By the way, just letting you know, this series is actually shorter than Panau. And if you haven't watched Panau or have no idea what I just explained with Spain, well, you should check it out. And I mean, I'm not making a specific another series for the entire world. I'm just gonna do series like this, where it's for example, Europe, which I'm already doing, Asia possibly, maybe Africa and North America. I could make South America, but I don't really know, and maybe Oceania in the future. So yeah, this is the map that you are all going to be seeing, so bye.